Have you ever felt like you need to make an important choice between this or that, or being this or that? Pick your one favorite color, pick one profession, choose one subject that you are interested in. And then what happens when you want to choose more, like 2 or more than 2, and you can't really make a decision or settle for one choice? Well, then you're going to feel relieved to hear that you don't have to make that choice. Life is not black and white, even though we try to make it black and white. We try to categorize it, we try to put labels, we try to put an order to this world, this unpredictable world. We try to make it make sense, so then we feel safer with this uncertainty. We want to organize so many unpredictable things, so then we feel a little bit safer and at peace, and like we have actually control over whatever is going on. So we as people, we want to divide things. We want to segregate them into categories. But often, or maybe even always, things are not just right or wrong. Things are not just good or bad. Things are not just black and white. They are somewhere in the middle. And the answer, most of the time, or maybe even always, is it depends. Because it does depend on a lot of factors, and the answer is not that simple. Because life is actually grey, somewhere in the middle of black and white, and this grey has a lot of shades. So I'm here today telling you that you don't have to choose between one thing or this or that. Don't simplify yourself as a human being, because then you become a prisoner of your own categorization and of your own labeling. And let me explain what I mean. Welcome back to my channel. For anyone new here, I'm Justina. I'm occupational psychologist and empowerment coach, and I love optimization of your personal mental health and physical health, and basically anything and everything what can make your life much simpler, more satisfied and fulfilled. Life has so many options, especially nowadays. The world is just crazy. You have unlimited option and choices. And what happens when you are standing in the middle and you either go left and follow your passion, for example, to be an artist and do this for a living, or you go right and you choose a stable job with stable, good salary that will give you a security, but unfortunately it will not be your passion. And often we think that these are the only 2 paths that we can follow. What if I told you that there's actually a third path, merging those 2 directions together and making the most out of both directions? We've been conditioned since very young age to choose. We've been made to believe that we need to choose one or the other, not one and the other. But a lot of people actually broke this code and, for example, merged their profession with the things that they love. So they chose this and that. And this is just one example where you don't have to choose, and probably you shouldn't choose. Society loves labels, good or bad. We hear that this food is good for you, this food is bad for you, these are superfoods, this behavior is toxic behavior, this is a good behavior, this is a red flag in relationship, this is a green flag in relationship. We like to categorize everything, we like to label everything, but in the world and human interactions or human life, it's not a binary code, it's not 0 and 1s. Our experiences, our emotions, every event is not just this or that. It's more like a spectrum. Even though we love extremes, we love to be in or out, all in or all out, go big or go home. There is actually a middle point, a compromise, where both of the worlds meet and you make the most out of it. And surprisingly, we often forget that. Whenever I'm coaching my clients, I always ask, what's the solution? Is there any way we can make the most out of both situations? Do you really need to have this or that? Is there any way that is a middle way? And often there is. But we want this or that and we hold on to it so tightly that we forget that we can loosen up a little bit of those options and let in another option a little bit so they can merge and blend and be more hybrid. And this concept with labeling or one thing or another is actually visible in every single aspect of our lives. It's not only about labeling people good or bad, but also about our identities that are actually very crucial for recognizing who we are, what we do, what's our purpose, basically addressing all the essence of us being human beings. And it's interesting to see that whenever we introduce ourselves to another person, we describe ourselves by usually one, maybe sometimes more than one, fixed identity. Let's say I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a psychologist, I'm a woman. I can describe myself by all those labels, but do those labels really describe who I truly am? Not really, because I can be a sister, but I'm a different type of a sister than another person who would call themselves sister as well. These are just simplified descriptions. We try to hold on to describe our identity somehow. And it does make some kind of work, but it's never capturing our complexity of our personalities and of our essence. Me being and acting as a sister, I'm a little bit different than me being in my professional setting. Or me being a daughter, I'm behaving differently and I have different relationship with my parent than me being a friend. So people could actually, and are actually doing it, describe me differently. For example, at my work, I'm often described as calm, organized, having everything under control, just so peaceful person. And then sometimes I go home and I tell this to my partner, and he is usually really surprised because I'm not always like that. And for the majority of the times, I'm actually really open, sometimes quirky, quite weird. And usually when I am stressing myself out, I will actually show it externally. But when I'm in a professional setting, I try to have everything under control and I don't let my stress to get out. I try to think more rationally and calm myself down before I externalize them. So as you see, different people would describe me totally differently, even though I am the same person. Because the problem with labels is that they are too simple. They are too simple for our complexity. And you might not only behave different towards different people because you have different relations with them, or they trigger different behaviors, or they need something else. Even my tone of voice is different when I'm talking to, for example, my cat, and I'm talking to someone else, because the relationship is just different. And not only that, also maybe this week I'm totally different than the next week, especially women when, you know, they are on a menstrual cycle. We actually have like 4 different personalities because of the hormonal changes. But also maybe during the week you are more strict with your habits and your diet and everything being organized. Whereas on the weekends you let yourself a little bit more loose, you're calmer, you're relaxed, you just do a little bit less because you want to just recharge, and then people might just see you differently. So even each day, each week, each month, or with each person, you might come across as someone different. Does this mean that you are a totally different person each time? No, it means that these are all you. These are all your 1,000 personalities, and that shows the complexity of your identity. So you can't just simplify it with just labels and categorizing yourself and others and the world. But we love labels. They are everywhere and you can't really escape from them. And even though they give you this peace and certainty and order in this chaotic world, they are very limiting. And then that limits your thinking, whether you want it or not, whether it is conscious or not. Because when you have to put things into a specific category or just label them, but you can't really make a decision or choose one or another because something or you might fit into multiple categories, things are just getting messy. And I remember when I was younger, every single day I wanted to become someone else. Every day I was coming up with a totally different profession for my future life. One day I wanted to be a florist, then the other day I wanted to be an astrophysicist, a doctor, a lawyer, a dancer, a psychologist. And the worst part is that I was actually capable of following any path. As long as I put some effort and of course work hard and study, I think I would make every single profession work for me. And as in this movie, Divergent, I felt like I am just made for too many things and I just cannot make a decision. Like, I cannot just choose one thing. And for many years, I believed that I need to stick with one thing for the rest of my life. And at the age of 18, I actually need to choose the profession, the one and only profession, the one career I will sacrifice myself to, or I will be interested in for the rest of my life. And that was a huge choice, because what if I choose wrong? And spoiler alert, I actually chose wrong, because I wanted astrophysics and then I went to study math, and then I ended up studying psychology with neuroscience, and then I ended up as an occupational psychologist and a coach, and nobody predicted it. And now I'm a YouTuber. I also worked in higher education and in banking, and I do plenty of other things on the side, and it just doesn't match any of the description. I can't really describe who I really am in just one label or one category or one sentence. So today I know that I'm not divergent and I'm not just the one who's supposed to be killed because I'm just made for too many things. I know that this is a strength to have multiple weaknesses, multiple strengths, multiple interests, multiple passions, and multiple directions that I want to grow and want to develop. We all gather them throughout life and we learn, we know more. We don't have to just choose that I'll be good at history and I will never be good at cleaning or cooking or fashion or personal relationships. We continuously learn and we gather all this experience and all these skills and all this knowledge and all those identities and all those labels that if you wanted to really describe every single person, you would have to use probably a million of those labels, and it would still not be enough because they're not precise enough. So we don't need to choose this or that. It should be this and that and that and that and that and a million other things. We should be chameleons. And we know that even from our brain, because our brain is incredible and it adapts really quickly because of evolution, because of the environment, in all the environments that we need to survive and live in, like a desert and colder atmosphere and this diet and that diet and those traumatic events or the other ones. We really adapt really quickly, and our brain adapts quickly. That's why our brain is able to the phenomenon called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is a phenomenon of our neurons rewiring in our brain or creating new neural pathways when we learn or when we go through something, our brain either changes the connections or create a new ones. And the ones that we repeat over and over, they are strengthened. And the ones that we do less and we don't need them at some point, brain just rewires them to another neural pathways. So for example, habit is really established, well-established neural pathway because we repeated this behavior and then that habit has its own pathway in our brain. Same with roads. The more used road is, the more visible it is that it is actually a road because maybe it has some holes or it is well established. But the unused roads sometimes might have a lot of grass over it or might be really hardly noticeable because nobody, well, uses them. And even as adults, we are capable to rewire our brains, even though we might not think that we learn something, because when we are younger, we literally learn every single day at school because there's so many things to learn. And when we are adults, well, later on we have our routines and we don't really grow as quickly as when we are younger. But even when we come across a new situation or we see something new or we go on holidays, these are also the moments when we gather a new experience, new skill or new knowledge that needs to be somewhere processed. And if it is impactful or we repeat it over and over, then we're going to rewire our brain and create a new pathway. That's why it is possible to, for example, build a new habit at any age. And neuroplasticity is not only because of your habits or because you want to finally learn how to play this piano, the thing that you've always wanted to do for years. It is also important to mention because you can, at any age, become the person that you've always wanted to become. The neuroplasticity of your brain allows you to shape yourself into basically any shape that you want. And then you might be wondering how to do that. And the only and the best way to do that is through self-reflection, learning and adaptability. And when we talk about self-reflection, it's not only about how you want to look like or how your life should look like in the best possible scenario. It's also what attribute or what characteristic has the person you want to become. It needs to be inside and outside, and you need to be honest with yourself. What kind of work you need to do. Get out from this box, get out from all those labels and shape yourself. Probably sometimes maybe even from scratch, to erase all your limiting beliefs and the boxes that you created all your life. So then you can enter your new, fresh era. And then when I talk about learning, it's not only learning about yourself through self-reflection and really discovering what you truly want to become the person you always wanted to become. It's also about exploring world out there. You might have a lot of answers within you, but you might need external different perspectives or gather more knowledge. So read, get to know new people. You might not gain something from them necessarily, but they might show you a totally different perspective, how to look at the world, maybe even an easier way than you currently have. Just because it's different, it doesn't mean it's worse, and just because it's different doesn't mean that you need to change it to that perspective. But it might show you something, some secret that will be actually useful for you. And then the third part is adaptability. You want to be a little bit flexible with your life. Sometimes life happens and sometimes things don't go according to your plan, and whatever you can do in that situation is think about what you can do in that situation, how you can move on from that moment instead of wishing that it didn't happen. But if you want to know more details about adaptability and building resilience, you need to check out my previous video. So although I'm wearing pink today, I'm all about that life isn't black and white and it has plenty of shades of grey, and I don't like when people say this or that and go into extremes, even though we like them. Life isn't about or either. It's not this option or that. It's more a spectrum, and nothing is that simple to just put one label on that situation, to describe that situation, or maybe to describe you or someone else's identity, personality. Life is really not that simple. That might be really confusing, that nothing is that simple. This is definitely the lesson that I've learned when I studied psychology, that, well, it all depends. It always all depends. Nothing has a simple answer, which might be frustrating, but it also gives us an amazing opportunity to understand that we can mold actually everything around. Nothing is set, and if labels are not a limit, then we are truly limitless, and you can get what you want, you can get where you want, and you can become the person that you truly want because of this plasticity. I hope you found this video useful, and if so, leave the comment down below. Please share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel not to miss more videos about optimizing your mental health, your physical health, and getting the life, the fulfilling life that you always wanted. And I'll see you in the next video.